My name is William Justice, and today I'm going to take you behind the scenes and show you how I created my slide panel effect in Davinci Resolve. I learned a lot while making these effects, and I wanted to walk you through the process and talk a little bit about the strategy I used and how I set everything up. I used basically the same technique for all of the new timeline fusion effects that I've created lately. Zoom, highlight, the shape mask, and the slide panel. And that's the one we're gonna be talking about today. Even if you're not gonna be making your own effects, I think there's a lot of interesting techniques in this video and really a lot to learn. How did I create the slide panel? What can you do with custom controls? How do you use expressions to tie everything together? Why would you want to animate without keyframes? How did I create the slide panel effect? How can you organize the controls on your macro or your effect to make them a lot easier to use and access? I call this process SCAMO. This stands for set up the effect, create some custom controls, animate everything, create your macro, and organize all the controls in the macro so that they're a lot easier to use. Okay, SCAMO. You're right, I just completely made that up. I just wanted to come up with something that would break the whole process down into a few easy to understand steps. There was a whole lot of information in this video and it got a lot longer than I wanted, so I decided to break it up into two parts. So today we're gonna talk about SCA. Set up the macro, create some custom controls, and animate everything. And in part two, we're gonna talk about the MO, which is creating the macro and doing a little bit of hand editing to organize and customize the controls so that they're a lot easier to use. I really appreciate everyone's support. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos about Davinci Resolve, filmmaking, effects, and whatever else I can think of. If you enjoy my videos, please like the video and comment below. It really helps my channel. All right, it's time for SCAMO. Let's start by setting up the fusion effect. We have a lot to cover, so I'm gonna go pretty quick in this video. We have a clip of me talking here. We're gonna trim this down to about 3 seconds. This makes it easier to set up our animation. Let's right click on the clip and say New Fusion Clip. And now let's go into Fusion to set up the effect. Click Fusion at the bottom of the screen. Let's add a background node, and we're gonna take the output of the background and merge it right on top of the media in. With background selected, hit the transform node, and we're gonna use the transform to slide the panel back and forth. Let's click background and set up a gradient color. Next, we're gonna set up a border between the main clip and the panel. This makes it easier to see sometimes. So to do this, we're gonna add in another background. So let's take a background and drag it into the node area. We're gonna set the color to white because we're gonna start it with a white border. And off of the first background, let's add a merge node. And we're gonna take this white background and merge it in right on top. So now all we need to do is add a mask to set which parts of the white we want to see. So with background 2 selected, let's hit the rectangle mask. And you can see we got our mask there. We're gonna uncheck solid and bring up the border width. And now all we need to do is get the rectangle to fit the width. So we're gonna set the width to 1 and the height to 1. So now when we move it around, we got a border there. We only want the border on the side, so all we need to do is take the rectangle and make the height just a little bit more. So we're gonna set it at, let's say 1.2. And now we got our border. So we can use Transform 1 to adjust the position of the panel. And we're also gonna wanna move the clip underneath, so as the panel slides over, the clip will slide over as well. So off of the media in 1, let's add another transform node. And we're gonna be able to use this transform to slide our clip over when the panel moves in. So let's click the transform 1. We want the panel to be able to slide in from the right or slide in from the left. And what we're gonna do to do this is we're gonna actually duplicate our panel. So let's take the output of merge 2 and put it right on top of merge 1. It's gonna create a merge for us with another copy of our panel. And let's add a transform node in there. Okay, so we have these two transforms and we can use transform 3 to move this one over. We can move the one on the left side of the screen, and with the other transform, we can move the one on the right side of the screen. So now let's position these so that they're just off the edge of the screen. So transform 1, which is this one over here, we're gonna set the X position at 1.5. And you can see it's just off the side of the screen. Let's take the transform 2 and reset the clip position. Now transform 3, which is the copy of the panel, we want that to be just off to the left side. So we're gonna set that to be minus 0.5. And that's just off to the left. So now the basic node structure is set up. The next thing we want to think about is the controls. So we're going to be packaging all of this stuff up in one effect as a macro. So we need to decide which of these different properties we want to be able to control from the macro. For example, we're going to want to be able to, let's take the panel and slide it over. We may want to be able to change the border color like that, or we might want to change the background. Obviously, we're going to want to be able to change the position of the main clip and the panel. We're also going to want to be able to animate these. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new property for the panel position as well as a new property for the clip position, and this is going to make it a little bit easier for us to animate it. Let me show you how this works. Each of the nodes in Fusion has properties over here in the inspector. All of these properties can actually be edited and changed, and we can actually add in our own custom properties. And I'm going to create some custom properties that allow us to control the positions. To be able to edit all of these properties here, what you can do is you can right click on any node and go up to Edit Controls. Now the UI for this is not the best, but it does get the job done. This screen lets you edit existing controls or add new controls into the node. So for example, if you wanted to find an existing control, you see there's the size here. We can right click on that, scroll down. This is a list of all the controls in the node, and we could scroll down and find size. And this lets us adjust the properties for the size. So you can see the default is 1, which is at where it's at right now. There's a range from 0 to 5, as well as the type of control. It's a slider control. There's other controls such as drop-down lists and checkboxes as well. So let's get out of here, go back in, and we're going to create a slider control for our panel position. So each control has a name, and this is how you reference it. So we're going to call it panel position. And as soon as we click off of that, it's going to give our control an ID. So the ID is going to be called panel position. We want it to be a number. The page, this is where it shows up in the inspector, and we're going to put it on a user page. So the pages are these tabs right up here. So, you know, some of the Fusion nodes have a lot of these tabs up here. These are the different pages, and this helps you organize controls. So we're going to set the default ours to be 0, and we want the range to be -1 to 1. And it's going to be a slider control just like the size, so we can slide it back and forth to move our panel. And that's all you really need to do to get the basic control created. There's a few other options, but this is going to get us started. So as soon as I hit OK, you see that we got this icon here, and this is our panel position. So now we have our panel position property. It goes from -1 to 1. So how are we going to use this? Let's use an expression and tie it into the position of this panel right here. So we'll click Transform 1 and click the main icon, and here's the center position. So we can actually use the panel position to animate our center position. So we're going to right click on center and choose expression. Let's move it to 1.5, which is just off the edge of the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to add panel position. So panel position, this is the name of our control, and we'll click off of that. Now when we go to our user tab, and the panel position is moving the position of the panel on the screen. Double click on it to reset it. Now let's do the other one. So we'll go to Transform 3, and we're going to right click on center and expression, and it's going to start at -0.5, and all we need to do is add panel position. But we can't just put in panel position because the panel position was in the Transform 1 node. So we need to make sure that when we have our expression, we say Transform 1, which is the node where the property is, put a period or dot, and put in panel position. So this is going to take the panel position property from Transform 1 and add it to our position. So let's go back to Transform 1, click on our user tab, and now we can slide them both back and forth. So let's do the same thing for our Transform 2. So we're going to right click on Transform 2, edit controls, and we're going to call this one clip position. We want it to be a number, and it's going to default to 0, and it's going to go from -1 to 1, and it's going to be a slider. And we'll hit OK. So now Transform 2 has the user tab up here with our clip position property. Now let's attach the clip position property to our center position. So we're going to right click on center, expression, and the center is 0.5, and we're going to add in the clip position. So now we can use this slider to adjust our clip. One thing we might want to do is to be able to customize this panel with more than just a background color. So off of this background, let's add in a merge node, and that's going to let us put anything we want to on top of that. So for example, we go to the media pool, drag this media in, and put it right on top of there, so that the panel now can have a graphic image. Really, you can put whatever you wanted to in here. One question people had with the original setup of this, let's go back to the media pool, is if you take a graphic and drag it in, it's going to put it right in the center, right there. So slide the panel all the way over. So when you merge this in, your graphic is in the center. So if your panel is not all the way over, you're not going to see the graphic. So in this case, you may need to use a transform node right here and slide your graphic over so that it's in the part of the panel you want to. We're going to delete this for now. All we're going to use is just this input here when we set up our macro so that you can put something on top of this if you want it. Okay, I wanted to show you one more really quick thing with the editing of the controls. It's not related to this specific animation, but I did use it for my mask effect. So what we're going to do is let's take these graphics and put them in here, and we're going to add a dissolve node, and we're going to add the media into the dissolve node. And let's put that up in the viewer and put it on top of a background here. This is just a quick setup. I'm gonna delete this off in just a second, but I wanted to show you one thing here that's kind of interesting with the custom controls. So with the dissolve node, you'll see that we have a background foreground and it goes from 1 blending to 0. One of the things I did is I actually used a custom control to be able to toggle this real quickly. So let's right click on the dissolve and hit edit controls. And let's add in, we'll call it toggle graphic. We're going to change the inputs health. So the other one we made it a slider. You can also do a screw control, range controls, checkboxes. So let's do a checkbox and hit OK. And now you'll see that we have this toggle graphic here. So how can we use that? Well, let's take some text here and merge our text on top. And let's take a look at what the value is within that toggle graphic. So we'll hit 2 on the merge. The text, we're gonna do an expression. We're gonna right click in this area, choose expression, make the expression equal to dissolve 1 dot toggle graphic. And you'll see it's 0. Let's move it over a little bit. So we have it 0 right there. So now if we go to dissolve 1 and check the box, you'll see it's changing between 0 and 1. Well, what if we use that in the dissolve right here for the background foreground? We could right click on this, choose expression, and we're going to enter toggle graphic. And now we've actually created a checkbox that toggles a graphic. Same thing works for if we want to do edit controls. And we'll call it just toggle 2. And this one we're going to make it a combo box. And we add the items in, graphic 1, we'll add that in, and graphic 2, and add that in. So this is going to create one of those drop-down boxes with 2 options. But okay, this is the one I use for the rectangle and the ellipse. So toggle 2, let's go to dissolve, let's go to our text, and let's enter toggle 2 here. And we're going to get the same kind of thing happen. So go back to the dissolve, and when we switch, 0 is for the first entry, 1 is the second, and as we add more, the numbers will keep going up. It would be 2, 3, 4 if we added some more in there. And we can use this for our dissolve. And because it's going between 0 and 1, we just need to say toggle 2. And there we go. So both of these kind of work the same way. They do a 0 and 1. I'm just using the text so you can see what the value is. And when we connect that up in the dissolve, we're using these controls to adjust the way our animation looks. That's just a real quick example of something that you can do with the custom controls to adjust your animations really easily. So let's delete that out and we'll click Media 2. All right, so if we didn't want to animate this, we're pretty much done. You could create this and we could use this exactly as it is, and you have manual controls to be able to slide things around. So we have the panel position controls, and we're going to want to add a few more things in there. We're going to want the backgrounds and things like that. Okay, so the next step is to animate this. Now we could use keyframes, but I don't want to do that. So I've created a new node that makes this thing really easy to animate. It's built off the Anim Curves, but what it does is it lets us adjust the animation in and out. To use it, we're going to click in the node area, hit Control Space, and we're going to search for JustTImingCurves. And this is the node that I created. Let me add this in and show you what's going on. So we can just put this right into our node thing here. It doesn't need to be connected to anything. It can just be sitting there because we're going to use this and adjust our expressions off of it. Really what this is this is just a merge node with some extra stuff added. And you'll see this user area here. And this is part of what I set up. This is all based off of the Anim Curves modifier. Okay, so when we play this thing, you'll see we have a value. And this is what we're going to use for our animations. It starts out at 0. It goes to 1, it holds for 1, and at the very end of the animation, it goes back down to 0. How can we use this to do our animation? It's just toggling back and forth between 0 and 1, and it kind of holds in the middle. So let's go to our transform 1 and take a look at the expression. So we have the panel position that's actually subtracting off, because it's, in this case, it's negative right now. it's subtracting off from the 1.5. So the more we subtract off, the more it slides back to the middle of the screen. If we subtract off everything, -1, you'll see that the panel fills the full screen. So let's slide it back here. So if we can adjust the panel position, we'll get some animation. Let's come in here. Now you notice that this JustTImingCurves, it says, see the JustTImingCurves I put in here, it has JTC. That's just an abbreviation. It's gonna make it faster to set up our expression. So I kind of wanted that to be short. So we click on transform 1, and we're gonna multiply panel position times JTC.value. And remember, JTC.value starts out at 0, goes to 1, and then goes back to 0. So for multiplying the panel position times 0, it's going to be at 1.5 off of the screen when we're at the very front. So right now it's at 1.5. The panel position is going to be multiplied times the value. So what I'm going to do is let me hit this JustTImingCurves. I'm going to pin that so you can see right now the value is 0. So this JTC.value is 0, meaning it's not subtracting off anything from the panel position. We're going to play it, and it animates in, and at the end it's going to animate out. And you can see down here the values are changing. So right at the end, it's going to hold that value, and then right at the end it's going to slide back down to 0. Now this is all customizable. So for example, if you wanted the panel to slide in faster, this is that frames in. Right now it's sliding in over 15 frames. You could set it to, let's say, 8 frames in and 30 frames out. So it's going to slide in really fast and slide out slow. Let's reset it. Let's put it at 30 frames in and 30 frames out. So it's going to slowly come in and slowly go out. All right, let's animate the transform 2, which is the clip position right here. So we're going to click the main tab, and we're going to multiply clip position times JTC.value. And now we have the clip position. Let's slide it over just a bit more. The clip position and the panel animating. The last thing we need to do is this transform 3, which is, that's the other panel over here off the left side of the screen. We're going to multiply that times JTC.value. So now let's take our panel position and slide it over this way. Take our clip position and slide it over, and we have the animation going the other way. A little bit more about this, just the JustTImingCurves thing I came up with. I have this available on my website for download that you can kind of play around with it. This is the value going in, value going out, and this is the in and out value. There's a lot of things you can do. I'm going to set up a really quick example for you here. Let's go back to 15 frames on these. You can actually delay when it comes in and out. So if you wanted it to delay a little bit and maybe start the animation around frame 15, you can delay that. It also has this modifier here where you can adjust the curves. This kind of has all the code that I did to set this up. So we could say this is the coming into the animation. This is the panel sliding in. We could choose the in and out of none, and maybe we wanted it to say bounce back. And it does a little bounce back effect. So all of these curves, you can kind of adjust it to smooth the animation just how you want. Okay, I may do another video on this, but let me just show you real quick what you can do with this JustTImingCurves thing that I came up with. Let's take this Resolve graphic. We'll merge it in on top. Let's add a transform node and make it a little bit bigger here. So one of the things you can do is, because it's a value going from 0 to 1, let's click on this, and the blend, you'll see that goes from 0 to 1. So let's right click on blend, choose expression, and we'll do JTC.value. Now we have a graphic that's going to fade in. We could also do the same thing in the transform with the, let's say, the size. So right now the size is at 2. What if we wanted it to get bigger? So we'll do the expression, and we're going to go times JTC.value. So when we do this, it's going to start out small and get bigger. We could also do the same thing with the angle. Right click on the angle, and we're going to say 360 times JTC.value. And we have a spinning graphic. It spins in, and then at the end of the animation, it'll spin right back out. So let's add in another JustTImingCurves. Just JustTImingCurves. And this one, what we're going to do, let's call this one JTC2. I'm going to use this one to animate the size of this graphic. So we want the size to start at 0. We're going to want it to go, let's say, to 2.5. And then we want it to get really big going off the screen. So let's put it at like 10. So now we have this value. Our value is going to start at 0. It's going to go to 2.5 and hold for a bit. At the end of the animation, it's going to go up to 10. So let's go back to our transform here. And as opposed to using the first timing curves, let's use the second one. And we don't have to multiply it times 2.0. And now we're going to have a graphic that comes in, gets big, and then it's going to get bigger as it goes off the screen. So anyway, that's I'm just trying to show you a few of the different things that I had the option to do when I was setting up these animations. Let's delete this extra stuff here because we're not going to need it for this effect. Okay, so this JustTImingCurves thing, this is pretty experimental. It's something I was playing around with. It is on my website. If you want to download it and try it out, feel free. And let me know how it works. I've been able to do quite a bit with it. It makes things a lot easier. No worrying about keyframing, which is great. Thanks for watching. If you are interested in the JustTImingCurves, the macro I created to do the timing, you can go to my website, buildjustice.com, click in the resources area, and there'll be a link for you to download it. You can download it and play around with it. I'll probably do another video on it to go into a lot more detail, showing you different ways to use it and some of the different things you can do. In part 2, which is coming out pretty soon, I hope. I have most of it filmed. I just got to put it all together. I'm going to be talking about turning this into a macro and then organizing the controls. We're going to actually take a look at what the Fusion settings look like in a text editor and move a few of the controls around, and hopefully it won't be as intimidating or as difficult as you think. With a few changes, you can really make some quick edits to get the macros really working the way you want. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I really appreciate everyone's support. Comment below and let me know what you think. If you have any questions, just put them down there and I'll get right back to you. I really like hearing from everyone. I'll talk to you soon.